Hi, welcome to the Building Dashboards in Easy Insight webinar. We're going to go ahead and wait for about a minute or two to see who else joins. But then we'll go ahead and get started with a quick walkthrough of how you build dashboards in Easy Insight, kind of some of the tips and tricks to doing that, as well as just a general Q&A if you have any other things you wanted to ask about dashboards as part of this. All right, we'll wait about 30 more seconds and then get started. Feel free to ask questions at any time during this. We'll just kind of, this is very informal webinar. We'll just kind of gradually work our way through stuff here. Okay, so go ahead and start sharing here. All right. So first off, what is a dashboard? Depending on the integration you're using in Easy Insight, you may already have a pre-built dashboard available to you under favorites. So in this case, I have the Syn7 Core dashboard, but whatever system you're using, you're typically going to have a dashboard there. A dashboard is going to be is from the perspective of Easy Insight, is a bunch of reports together on a single screen. So here we're able to look and see the different sections, and then when we click into a section on a dashboard, it's showing us many reports together on a single screen. So how do we build the dashboard ourselves? First, we need to go ahead and have some reports. Once you have some reports built, you can do create and do create dashboard. This is the dashboard editor. Here, you have some options on the left, including all the reports that are on this data source that you can drag into your report. So if I go ahead and grab margin breakdown and drag it here to where it is highlighted in green, that is going to put that report on the dashboard there. If we want to add a second report, you'll see that if we put it in the center, that's going to replace margin breakdown in this case with margin breakdown list. If we move up, this is going to put it above, to the left, to the right, and below. I'll go ahead and add it below. Now we're seeing the two reports together on the dashboard. We can go ahead and click on the orange Save button, save the dashboard, give it a name, click Save. To go between the editor and the view, click on View. This takes us to the view version of the dashboard. We can click on Edit again in the upper right to go back to the editor. If we want to create a filter that will apply across everything in the dashboard, we can click on Create Filter. In this case, we'll go ahead and grab invoice date as our date filter. So now when it runs, that filter is going to be applied across both of these reports. If we want to add multiple pages to the dashboard, we can click here on where it says Add Multiple Pages. So now we have page 1 with the two reports on it. We can click on Page Options here. do add page. That gives us our new page. So we can go ahead and drag sales trends onto this section. Now, this is an example. In this case, sales trends has some pretty complex date filtering on itself, and it really doesn't want to use that invoice date filter that's here at the dashboard. So how do we do this? Click on Options next to Sales Trends. Go to Filters. Well, first we need to save our dashboard. Then if we come back in and go to Sales Trends, we can click on Filters, and we can choose to toggle off invoice date. So when it runs for the sales trends report, it won't use that invoice date filter. If we want to relabel this from saying page 1 to margins, we click on the edit link, do rename, and change it to margins. If we want to add icons, we can click on edit, do assign icon, do find icon. We'll do, go ahead and add an icon here. Do that. So now we have the two sections with the icon next to each section. Next, let's take a look at what else we can do. If we want to have a filter that only applies to a certain page, what we could do is we'll go ahead and add subpages. So we're basically creating a further nested page here on under margins. We'll go ahead and do add filter. In this case, we'll do source. We save. So now you see that we have this source filter here when we're under margins, but when we click to sales trends, that source filter isn't there. That way it's only applying at the nested page level. Next, let's look at how we can add in a table of contents to our dashboard. We'll click on Page Options, do Add Page, then we'll drag Table of Contents from the left into the drag reporter element here. We'll go ahead and rename this to Welcome, or whatever you want to call it. To move it to the front, we'll click on Page Options, do Reorder Pages, drag it to the top, click Save. Now we have our welcome, we have our margins, we have the ability to click to them from the table of contents. If you want to add descriptions to a page for the table of contents, click on Edit, Configure Page Description. Here are reports about the margins in your business. Here are your sales trends. Good, add better descriptions as you need to there. But we click on View. Now we have the descriptions there. So especially as you're building more complex dashboards for your end users, this can be a good way to create easy dashboards that are easy to navigate and find what you need inside of. All right. When it comes to exporting a dashboard, you'll see that you have the ability to do export to PDF. When you do export to Excel, it'll prompt you to choose which report you want to export to Excel, because you really have to be for the Excel side. It does need to be an individual one that you're putting into Excel. You can always click on the three dots to the upper right here to navigate to the report, to edit it, or to export it individually. When you do embed dashboard, that is going to give you a link you can use to embed the dashboard as an iframe. So if you're trying to put it in some external system, this is how you get the dashboard in there. By default, when you go to this URL, it's going to prompt you to log into Easy Insight, as you can see here. There are a couple of different options you can do here as well. If you go back here to the dashboard editor, do configuration, and do dashboard properties, you'll see that there are options here for publicly visible and publicly visible with key. With publicly visible, if you toggle this, if when the user goes to that embed URL, they will not have to log in. So obviously that's up to you from a security perspective. If you're okay with that, it's not going to be, there's no way somebody can search for and find the dashboard, but it's, if they have that URL, they can get to it without logging in. So it just kind of depends on your use case with that. Publicly visible with key is going to work in a similar fashion, but it's going to include a key as a parameter that identifies what user is logged in, or what user is should be seeing the dashboard. So if you have a persona that says this user can only see data where the sales rep is Jim, and the user is then using the map to that persona, that's going to allow you to have it so that everything in the dashboard is filtered based on that. So that can be a little tricky here. So let's actually walk through that a little bit in more detail here. So if we go to account settings, personas, we go to row level security, we do add persona. Let's see, we'll go ahead and we'll do by sales. So we already, in this case, we already have a sales rep persona based on sales rep. So we'll go ahead and create a user. We'll assign them to the sales rep persona. We'll say that we'll say this is John sample. So we're creating a user for John, for the sales rep named John here. And we have that. Then we go back here, back to our dashboard, change it to publicly visible with key, save, click on view, export, and do distribute dashboard. This gives us a URL that we can use to, so this specific URL here, if we send this to John, when he logs into the dashboard, he is only going to see his, sales that are where he is the associated rep. He doesn't have to log in, but it's still going to identify that he's the one accessing that URL based on this parameter, and it will, so that he's the only one who can access that data, so he's seeing that set of reps or set of customers. So it can be a good way to create dashboards that are rolled out across a number of users while only having them see their relevant set of data. Let's see, what else can we look at here? When it comes to styling your dashboards, if you click on your username, go to account settings, and go to account skin under visuals. From here, there were a number of options you can use to customize look and feel. So under header, you can add things like a logo, things like that. Under dashboards, you can choose the layout, you can choose the colors to use. Quite a few different options you can use to customize what you want to see. So if I want to have a very different border color, click save. We go back to our sample dashboard. Now we have our border color. So you can customize whatever you need to there from a look and feel perspective. Let's see, next let's look at linking filters. So if we go ahead and edit this dashboard, we'll go ahead and add one more page in, and we'll look for a report that's based on purchases. So something that is not based on invoice date at all. We will go ahead and choose that. Well, let's do a different one. Let's do this one. Okay, so in this case, we have order date that we want to use as the actual date field. So what we can do is click on order date, do link to dashboard filter, choose invoice date. So what we've done just now is we've linked those two filters. So what it'll allow us to do is when we go to, so if we go to the view version, we go here. So now, even though this filter was originally created on sales invoice date, the date filter is being applied to this purchase report based on the purchase order date. If we adjust the date filter, updates accordingly, provides a more seamless experience, and make sure the filters don't create conflicts, because trying to apply a sales invoice date filter to a purchase report is not going to make sense. It's going to give you probably a broken filter or something along those lines. This is going to be a much more, much better way of doing that. All right. So this is kind of, I know this is a bit of a tricky one, but this can be a very useful one to really have a solid understanding of. All right. Let's see. Any questions? You can also add further sections here. So if you could drag and put an image into your dashboard. You could add text in. So if I want to have text of, here are some reports about the margins in your business. We add that text in there. Shows up there. If we want to further style that text, we can go back in, click on text options, go to properties. We can change it to bigger font size. We can change the color, change the alignment, so on. All right. Okay, next let's look at repeaters. So if we go ahead and add another page, so this repeater, what is this? So if we drag this in, it's going to prompt us we'll go ahead and choose a report to start with. We'll choose, let me find a good report that we can repeat things on. We'll do invoiced amount. We're going to do it let's do it per rep. We'll do 3 columns. Okay, so what did this do? We'll click on save, view, and it did not work. All right. Let's see. Let's create a fresh dashboard just to make this a little more isolated for this one. So we'll do the same thing here with a repeater. This is going to repeat the report for every value that it finds. So that Give it a second to run there. So what that has done is it's run that same report for each rep automatically, repeating it across the dashboard. So especially if you want to repeat by product category, brand, rep, customer group, whatever it may be, you could have these have a section that repeats that same report without having to create a separate report for each filtered value. Let's see, let me jump back into this one to see what else we can cover. Under dashboard properties, you will find a variety of other options. So various styling options, quite a few different things you can use to kind of manipulate your dashboards there. If you want to remove a tab from your dashboard, just click on Edit and do Delete Page. Remove that filter. If we add another filter here, if we want to reorder the filters on our dashboard, you can do Quick Actions, Reorder Filters. So if we save, updates accordingly. Yep. Trying to think what else is worth covering here. Especially if you enable things like show last refresh. That is going to add a display of the last time the data source was refreshed, which I guess, unfortunately, this is test data that doesn't have a last refresh date, but normally it would show up here. Let's see. I think that's kind of everything to cover in this one. Are there any questions? Well, in that case, let's go ahead and call it with that. But thank you for attending this webinar on building dashboards and Easy Insight. We'll make sure to make this recording available, but hopefully this helped provide some guidance around what you can do with creating dashboards in Easy Insight.